adverse effects on the unemployment rate in Albania. The current period of life we are living has been defined by the COVID-19 pandemic, certainly one of the worst pandemics that the world has faced in the last centuries. Albania is going through this situation for more than 14 months. The coronavirus has paralyzed the entire economy and there is still no hope for this situation to end definitely. The global recession is still in progress and all governments are struggling to get ahead of the coronavirus. In Albania, the number of unemployed as a result of this crisis is about 70,000 people and this figure could go over 100,000 by the end of the year, raising even temporarily the number of people living in poverty. This study aims to analyze the COVID-19 pandemic effects on the unemployment rate in Albania. Secondary data will be collected from Instat, World Bank and IMF, and statistic methods will be used to draw important conclusions. Unemployment brings many difficulties to young people and individuals of all ages. It is an issue that affects people all over the world and has become today the most troubling problem for the governments of any country. Unemployment is a concept used for those working-age people who are not employed and are willing and able to work and are actively looking for it. The unemployment rate is a measure that is calculated as a percentage comparing the number of unemployed individuals to the labor force. Literature review. Numerous debates over economic policies such as unemployment and economic growth are often linked to wage increases that depend on social security contributions. The social system that exists in most countries is composed of two components: old age pensions and unemployment insurance, while the wages are determined by agreements between firms and unions. The link between unemployment and its social contributions has been extensively addressed by Nicol and Laird in 1999. The link between pensions and the country's economic growth has been addressed by St. Paul in 1992 and Balan in 1998. Numerous studies have been conducted to determine the link between unemployment and economic growth. Most of them has been triggered by the work of Agion and Howitt in 1994, Pissarides in 2000, who consider unemployment caused by the movement of individuals between jobs, frictional unemployment, and by economic growth. About the methodology, for the interpretation of the data of this work, we have used secondary data and we have relied on the literature review conducted above, data on the main indicators that we used, such as unemployment rate, poverty rate, remittances, base salary, and real GDP change, are found on the official website of Central Bank of Albania, Instat, and the World Bank. The data used belong to the period 2000-2020. We used the multifactorial econometric model through the Gerta econometric program to detect the existence of link between the independent variables and the unemployment dependent variable. Here is the formula for the econometric model. Based on this main hypothesis, we have raised 4 secondary hypotheses. The first hypothesis is about poverty, the second hypothesis is about the average wage, the third is about the importance of GDP, and the fourth about remittances. After performing tests on the significance of the model, it turns out that the model is significant. But we know that after performing the test in gradual 1 of the independent variables, average salary does not come out significant. For this result, we think this relates to the data where there is no lack of the fact that the data may not be completely accurate, as in the case of poverty, where some data were not published, but also the data of other variables obtained from official sources. There is a possibility of political influence where not all unemployed or employed people may be declared influencing on the unemployment rate. It should not be forgotten that there are still employees who receive a salary which is below the minimum level, although they can be declared as employees with a minimum wage which is delivered in cash, affecting the average salary. All these conclusions, we think, have a significant impact on the validity of the data of the variables taken in the study, which is also reflected by the testing itself in the econometric model. At the end of the testing of the econometric model in Gretel, the first hypothesis is rejected and the first alternative hypothesis is confirmed. At least one of the economic factors taken into study is statistically significant and effects on unemployment in Albania. As mentioned above, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and current time for about 3 months have negatively affected the world economy in Albania. This post-pandemic situation has affected the loss of millions of jobs and damaged businesses all over the world. The American rating agency Standard & Poor's has published a report that ranks Albania in the top 15 countries on the list of countries whose economy will be damaged by the new coronavirus COVID-19, where tourism will have the greatest impact. In Albania, the number of unemployed people has raised from 70,000 to 100,000 by the end of the year. Significant improvements in this regard are already taking a heavy toll. In the short term, the economic impact of the pandemic is shifting the demand for labor to other sectors and regions, and it remains to be seen whether this will be only temporary or this trend could be also permanent. Poverty will also be aggravated due to remittances, as Albanian immigrants will start sending less money to families, to their home families, as their work in European countries will be affected. They are at best forced to work from home. Business owners have been forced to close their businesses temporarily. Others have been forced to take compulsory paid leave, while in the worst case, some have even lost their jobs. Consequently, the ability of those persons to send money home to their families is significantly reduced, and undoubtedly, the worst will suffer those families whose only source of income are the remittances they receive from their family members from outside. In conclusion, at the end of this topic, we conclude that unemployment has been, is, and will always be a delicate and very important issue in the design of and implementation of various policies, government policies, and economic sustainability of a country. As in Europe, the issue of unemployment must be studied with carefully, especially in the case of women and young people. In addition to the economic factors studied in this paper, all the factors that affect unemployment rate are very important, as we mentioned about poverty, remittances, GDP growth, and average wages. A very large impact on these factors will have the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and consequently will have an impact on unemployment as well. The link between unemployment and poverty is important. If remittances increase by 1% and other variables remain constant, then the unemployment rate will decrease by 0.009%. So the variables move in the opposite direction. If the average wage increases by 1% and other variables remain constant, then the unemployment rate will decrease by 1.57%. The COVID-19 pandemic is expected to affect these factors even more, further aggravating the unemployment rate, where we think the impact will be even greater on the economy than it was after the 2008 crisis, last financial crisis. Thank you.